I worked the overnight booth at Bergen Street Station for 4 years before I saw something that made me quit. It started small. A woman in a gray wool coat boarded the last downtown train every night at 12:41. Took the same seat, third row, right side, facing the doors. She never looked at her phone. She never looked at anyone. She just sat there, and every night, without fail. The platform cameras never caught her getting off before the train reached the yard. At first, I figured she worked a job like mine. Someone else stuck riding a dead-of-night train because the schedule made her. Booth workers know every regular. We trade stories about them, give them nicknames. Nobody knew who she was. And in 4 months of me checking the monitors after my shift, not one camera ever showed her leaving a train. I started staying late to watch the platform feed. 3 nights, nothing unusual. Then, on the 4th, I saw her stand up 2 stops early. She didn't walk to the doors. She walked to the gap between train cars, crouched by the coupling, and waited there until the train slowed for my station. Then she stepped off into the space where the platform curves out of camera range. I'd worked that station for years and never known there was a blind spot big enough to hide a person. I should have called it in right there. I didn't. I wanted to know why. The next night I clocked out early and waited in that gap myself, behind the emergency phone box. She came at 12:52, same as always, pulled a notebook from her coat, wrote something down, and disappeared up the maintenance stairwell toward the street. I followed. She wasn't hiding. She walked like she owned the platform. 2 blocks up. She went into an all-night diner and sat with 2 men I recognized from the neighborhood, men who'd been arrested that spring for breaking into 3 apartments belonging to transit workers, all hit on nights they'd worked the late shift. I watched through the window as she handed one of them the notebook. He flipped through it, nodding, like he was checking off a list. I got close enough to read the top of a page before he closed it. My name was on it. Next to it, my shift schedule for the whole month, my home address, and the words "alone after 1 a.m. No dog. Ground floor window unlocked." I hadn't told anyone my schedule. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. The only place that information existed was the transit authority's internal system, the one only booth staff and dispatch could open. For 2 days I didn't go back to work. I called out sick and spent the time trying to decide who to tell. When I finally called the police, I described a woman in a gray coat with a notebook, and they told me that without a name or a direct threat, there wasn't much of a file to open. I asked whether anyone outside dispatch could pull an employee's home address from our internal system. The officer said he'd pass the question along. Nobody ever called me back. I went back to work the next night because I didn't know what else to do. I needed the paycheck and told myself I'd sort it out after payday. At 12:41, she got on. 3rd row, right side, gray coat. For the first time in 4 months, she looked straight at the booth window, straight at me, and she smiled, small and polite, the way you'd smile at a coworker in the hallway. Then she reached into her coat, pulled out the notebook, and held it flat against the glass just long enough for me to read the new page. My name, crossed out. Underneath, in the same careful handwriting, Tuesday night. Confirmed alone. Today is Tuesday. I found my own employee badge taped inside a maintenance closet on the Blue Line, 6 weeks before it was supposed to exist. I'm a track walker for the seat, which means overnight shifts, checking tunnel sections for damage or debris before the morning rush. Quiet work. I like it that way. 3 months ago, on a routine walk near the Damen stop, I opened a supply closet for a flashlight battery and found a laminated badge taped to the inside of the door. My photo, my name, my employee number, everything correct except the issue date, which read 6 weeks in the future, and a shift code that doesn't exist in our scheduling system. I asked my supervisor about it. He said it was probably a printing error from HR and told me to bring it to the badge office. The woman there looked at it for a long time before telling me, quietly, that her office had never printed it. The paper stock wasn't even the kind the CTA uses. 2 weeks later, a track walker named Ortiz, who'd worked the blue line longer than me, got hurt badly. He was found unconscious near the O'Hare branch, and the official report said he'd slipped near a live rail during a routine inspection. But, days before, Ortiz had told me he thought someone had been moving his equipment, a ladder left in a different spot, his radio set to the wrong channel. He said it felt like someone was rearranging his shift before he'd even clocked in. After Ortiz's accident, I started checking that closet every night. For weeks, nothing. Then I found a second badge. Not mine, Ortiz's. Same fake shift code, same future issue date. Except this time the date had already passed. It matched the exact night he got hurt. I photographed both badges and brought them to transit police, along with the story about the moved equipment. The officer was polite, but clearly thought I was describing a coincidence. He filed it as a workplace safety concern and said they'd look into who had access to that closet that night. Unable to just wait around, I checked 6 other maintenance closets along my section of the line. 2 more had badges taped inside. One belonged to a signal technician who'd transferred out of state the month before. The other belonged to a name I didn't recognize at all, a woman named Dela. When I searched the employee directory later, there was no record of anyone by that name ever working for the CTA. 3 nights ago, I found a 3rd badge. My photo again. Same fake shift code. The issue date was tomorrow. I called in sick. Told my supervisor I had a family emergency and wouldn't be in for the rest of the week. He said that was fine, and to feel better soon. Last night I couldn't sleep, so I drove to the Damen stop just to watch the closet from a distance, through the perimeter fence. A CTA maintenance van I didn't recognize sat idling on the access road behind the station. No driver visible inside. As I watched, someone in a CTA safety vest walked out of the tunnel entrance carrying a clipboard, checked something against it, and looked directly up toward where I'd parked. I drove home without stopping at a single light. This morning there was an email in my work inbox. Subject line, shift confirmation. My name, my employee number, a start time for tonight. I never submitted a request to come back early, and I certainly hadn't told anyone. I was ready. The email was signed with my supervisor's name. My supervisor has been on vacation in Michigan for a week. I know because I dropped him at the airport myself. For 11 nights, the same man boarded the red line 2 stops after me and stood in the car behind mine, close enough that I could see his reflection in the window every time the train passed through a tunnel. He never got closer. He never spoke. He got off exactly 1 stop before mine, every single night. Like he wanted me to notice him but never wanted to be caught doing it. I worked the closing shift at a law firm downtown, which means I ride home alone most nights, around 11:30. After the 3rd night, I started changing which car I boarded. It didn't matter. He'd find the car too behind mine, within a stop or 2. Like he already knew my new routine before I did. On night 7, I did something stupid. I got off 1 stop early, at Farragut North, instead of my usual stop, just to see what he'd do. He got off too. Followed me up the escalator, staying 30 feet back the whole way, and when I turned onto my street, he stopped at the corner and stood there, watching until he saw my door lock. I called the police that night. They took a report. There wasn't much they could do since he hadn't touched me, hadn't threatened me, and technically hadn't broken any law by riding a public train. The officer told me to vary my routine and, if I could manage it, avoid riding alone after dark. After that, I started carrying pepper spray in my coat pocket and texting my location to a friend every night before I even boarded. It didn't stop him from showing up. If anything, he seemed to time his own boarding a few seconds later each night. like he was watching through the window to see exactly when I finished typing before the doors closed. Night 9. I finally worked up the nerve to turn and look at him directly through the connecting door glass. He was already looking back. For the first time, he mouthed something at me. 3 words. I couldn't make them out through the glass and the noise of the train, but I watched his lips move slow and deliberate, like he wanted to be sure I could read them if I tried hard enough. Night 10. I brought my roommate along for the ride home. The man wasn't on the train at all. I told myself maybe he'd finally stopped, moved on to whatever came next for men like that. Night 11. I was alone again because my roommate had a late shift of his own, and the man was back, standing in his usual spot 2 cars behind. This time, when the train slowed for my stop, he didn't wait behind the connecting door like always. He walked through it, into my car, and sat down directly across from me for the very first time. Up close, I recognized him immediately, and not from the platform. I recognized him from a photo pinned to the corkboard. In my firm's break room, 2 years earlier, a security bulletin the building had circulated after a string of break-ins targeting employees who worked the same closing shift I did. The bulletin said he'd since been arrested, tried, and sentenced to 11 years. I called our building's security office the next morning, hoping someone could confirm whether he'd been released early. Nobody there had any record of that bulletin at all, not in the old files or the new ones, as if it had never been circulated in the first place. He should still have been in prison. He leaned forward as the doors closed, and finally said the 3 words out loud, the same ones he'd mouthed through the glass 2 nights before. Time's up now. The train pulled away from my stop without slowing down.